Picture this. You're a child, walking into the living room with a smile because you just drew a picture you're proud of. You hold it up, waiting for praise. Your parent glances at it, then casually says, "That's nice, but your sister's drawing is so much better. Why don't you try harder like she does?" In that single moment, joy turns into shame, pride turns into resentment, and without realizing it, the bond you should have with your sibling begins to fracture. This is no ordinary sibling rivalry. This is rivalry manufactured, deliberately engineered, by a parent who thrives on competition, comparison, and control. Because for a narcissistic parent, children are not seen as individuals, they are pawns, pieces in a private game where only the parent can win. One child may be crowned the golden child, showered with attention and praise. Another is cast as the scapegoat, blamed for every problem. And both roles are designed with one purpose: to keep the siblings divided, distracted, and desperate for approval. And the cost? A lifetime of self-doubt, fractured relationships, and wounds that follow well into adulthood. In this episode, we're going to uncover how narcissistic parents weaponize sibling rivalry, why they do it, the tactics they use, and the devastating effects it leaves behind. Most importantly, we'll explore how you can recognize the pattern and start breaking free from it. Because sometimes the real enemy isn't your sibling, it's the parent pulling the strings. Sibling rivalry is often brushed off as just part of growing up. Brothers and sisters fight over toys, grades, attention. It seems harmless, even normal. And in many families it is. Healthy rivalry can teach children about competition, cooperation, and boundaries. But when rivalry isn't organic, when it's deliberately planted, nurtured, and weaponized by a parent, it becomes something else entirely. It stops being a childhood phase and instead turns into a psychological trap. Narcissistic parents understand something most people don't. Competition breeds control. By manufacturing conflict between siblings, they ensure that their children are too busy fighting each other to notice the real source of the chaos. Instead of bonding, siblings learn to mistrust one another. Instead of seeing themselves as allies, they see themselves as rivals for affection, safety, and validation. And this isn't accidental, it's strategic. It's a form of manipulation that serves one purpose: to feed the parent's ego and maintain dominance inside the family system. In this episode, we'll peel back the layers of this hidden dynamic. We'll look at the psychology of narcissistic parenting, the tactics used to pit siblings against each other, the long-term consequences, and, most importantly, what can be done to break the cycle. To understand how narcissistic parents manufacture sibling rivalry, we first have to understand what drives them. Narcissistic parenting isn't simply about being strict or demanding. It's about treating children as extensions of the parent's ego rather than as individuals with their own needs, feelings, and identities. At the core of narcissism lies a fragile sense of self. Narcissistic parents often crave admiration, validation, and control to cover their own insecurities. Children, unfortunately, become their most accessible source of what psychologists call narcissistic supply, the emotional energy they draw from others to maintain their inflated sense of importance. But supply isn't just praise. Conflict, chaos, and competition can feed the narcissistic ego just as effectively. By setting their children against one another, the parent ensures constant drama in which they play the starring role, the judge, the referee, the one whose approval is the ultimate prize. This need for control often shows up in predictable ways. A narcissistic parent might project their own unmet ambitions onto their children, Withhold affection unless certain conditions are met. Pit siblings against each other to secure loyalty and dependency. Rewrite family narratives to position themselves as the indispensable center of attention. It's important to note that this dynamic isn't always loud or obvious. Sometimes it's blatant favoritism, but other times it's subtle, small comparisons, quiet dismissals, or invisible double standards. In every case, the result is the same. Children grow up in an environment where love feels conditional, where affection must be earned, and where their sibling is seen less as a companion and more as a competitor. Understanding this psychological foundation sets the stage for uncovering the tactics narcissistic parents use to weaponize sibling rivalry, and why those tactics are so devastating. Narcissistic parents don't just passively watch their children compete, they actively engineer the competition. The methods vary in intensity and visibility, but they all share the same goal: to divide siblings and keep the parent in control. Let's break down the most common tactics. 1. The golden child versus the scapegoat. Perhaps the most well-known strategy is assigning roles. One child is elevated as the golden child, the favorite who can seemingly do no wrong. The other becomes the scapegoat, the one blamed, criticized, or compared unfavorably at every turn. These roles are not random. They are carefully chosen to maximize control. The golden child often feels immense pressure to perform, while the scapegoat carries the weight of rejection. Both roles feed the parent's need for dominance. 2. Triangulation. This is a psychological maneuver where the parent positions themselves between siblings, filtering communication and sowing distrust. For example, a parent might tell one child, "Your brother said you're lazy," whether it's true or not. The goal is to spark conflict, ensuring that siblings fight with each other rather than question the parent. 3. Constant comparison. Narcissistic parents thrive on creating hierarchies. They might praise one child's grades while mocking the other's efforts, or highlight one's looks, talents, or personality traits at the expense of their sibling. Over time, this creates a sense of inadequacy in one child and superiority in the other, both of which serve the parent's control. 4. Withholding love and affection. Love becomes a bargaining chip. Affection, praise, or attention is distributed not based on need, but on performance or compliance. When one sibling is rewarded, the other notices the absence. This conditional love fuels rivalry as children scramble to earn the scarce resource of parental approval. 5. Playing victim to gain loyalty. Narcissistic parents may cast themselves as the wounded party and recruit children to take sides. "I can't believe your sister talks to me like that after everything I've done for her," they might say. By framing themselves as a victim, they manipulate siblings into competing for the role of loyal protector. 6. Subtle undermining. Sometimes the tactics aren't overt. A parent might give backhanded compliments, set impossible standards, or make sarcastic remarks disguised as jokes. These subtle digs erode confidence and stir resentment, without leaving obvious evidence. 7. Inconsistent favoritism. Perhaps the cruelest tactic is shifting the roles. One day a child is the golden child, basking in attention. The next, they're the scapegoat. This unpredictability keeps both siblings in a constant state of anxiety, never knowing where they stand. It prevents them from forming solidarity, because the winner and loser positions are always in flux. Through these tactics, narcissistic parents build an environment where siblings are locked in perpetual rivalry. What looks like ordinary sibling conflict is actually a carefully orchestrated power play, ensuring that the parent remains the center of the family universe. When sibling rivalry is manufactured by a narcissistic parent, the effects ripple far beyond childhood arguments. What might appear on the surface as petty squabbles or kids just being kids often masks deep psychological scars that shape the children's sense of self and their ability to trust others for years to come. In the short term, children often experience confusion and insecurity. If love and approval are tied to performance or comparison, they never feel safe in their parents' affection. One child may obsessively strive to be perfect, terrified of slipping into disfavor. Another may internalize rejection, believing they are fundamentally flawed. Both responses can create chronic anxiety. Anger and resentment are also common. Siblings locked in rivalry often feel betrayed by each other, not realizing the true source of their conflict lies with the parent. Instead of developing supportive bonds, they may carry bitterness, jealousy, or distrust well into adulthood. In the long term, the consequences can be even more damaging. Many children of narcissistic parents struggle with self-esteem, constantly comparing themselves to others. They may become people pleasers, overachievers, or perfectionists, always chasing external validation. Others might rebel, rejecting authority and relationships altogether, but still carrying the emotional weight of never feeling enough. Fractured sibling relationships are another lasting impact. Some siblings go decades without speaking, still locked in roles imposed on them as children. Others maintain contact, but struggle to form authentic bonds, always second-guessing motives and fearing betrayal. Beyond family ties, these patterns seep into friendships, careers, and romantic relationships. Trust issues, codependency, difficulty setting boundaries, and susceptibility to manipulative partners are common outcomes. The rivalry may end in the household, but the mindset it creates often lingers, shaping how these individuals interact with the world. Perhaps the most painful impact is this: the realization that what felt like natural sibling dynamics was, in fact, orchestrated. Recognizing this truth can be liberating, but it also means confronting years of lost connection and acknowledging the harm done by the very person who was supposed to nurture and protect. One of the most striking features of narcissistic parenting is the creation of rigid roles within the family, most notably the golden child and the scapegoat. These roles aren't chosen by the children themselves. They are imposed by the parent as part of the manufactured rivalry. The golden child is idealized, praised, and placed on a pedestal. This child becomes the parent's pride and joy, often burdened with the expectation of carrying the family's image of perfection. On the surface, it may look like privilege, endless compliments, protection from criticism, and special treatment. But beneath that shine lies immense pressure. Golden children often grow up terrified of failure, convinced that love is conditional on their performance. They may internalize the parents' high expectations, leading to perfectionism, burnout, and a fragile sense of self-worth. The scapegoat, on the other hand, becomes the repository for blame. Every flaw, every problem, every disappointment gets projected onto them. They are criticized, dismissed, or even ridiculed in front of others. While this role is painful, scapegoats sometimes develop resilience and a clearer perspective on the parent's dysfunction. Still, they carry wounds of rejection, shame, and a persistent sense of being the problem. What makes these dynamics particularly toxic is that both children are victims even if it doesn't appear that way. The golden child may look favored, but their identity is hijacked by the parents' expectations. The scapegoat may appear rebellious or difficult, but in reality, they are reacting to systemic rejection. And here's the most damaging part. These roles are designed to prevent unity. By casting siblings into opposing identities, the parent ensures they see each other as adversaries, not allies. The golden child may resent the scapegoat for disrupting family harmony, while the scapegoat may resent the golden child for being the favorite. Neither realizes, at least at first, that both roles are manipulated and controlled by the same hand. Recognizing this truth, that both golden child and scapegoat are trapped in the same toxic system, is often the first step toward healing sibling relationships that narcissistic parents worked so hard to destroy. At first glance, the constant rivalry and tension between siblings might look like unfortunate family drama, but for the narcissistic parent, it serves a very specific purpose. Conflict isn't an accident, it's a tool. The most obvious reason is control. A united set of siblings could compare experiences, share insights, and potentially recognize the parent's manipulation. That unity would be dangerous to the narcissist's authority. By keeping siblings at odds, the parent ensures that their power goes unchallenged. There's also the element of supply. Narcissists crave emotional energy, admiration, loyalty, even fear. Watching children scramble for approval provides a steady stream of validation. Every argument, every attempt to outshine a sibling reinforces the parent's role as the ultimate judge whose opinion matters most. Another motive is narrative control. By scripting one child as good and another as bad, the parent creates a story where they remain the indispensable center. They get to play savior to the golden child and persecuted victim of the scapegoat. Both roles keep the spotlight firmly on them. Finally, conflict preserves dependence. If siblings can't trust each other, they have nowhere else to turn. Their only stable reference point becomes the very parent who created the instability. In short, sibling rivalry isn't just tolerated by narcissistic parents, it's cultivated. It keeps them in power, keeps them relevant, and keeps everyone else divided. The most important step in healing from manufactured sibling rivalry is recognition. You can't break free from a pattern you don't see. For many, the realization comes as an aha moment, understanding that the enemy was never their sibling, but the parent orchestrating the conflict. Spotting the red flags is the first step. Did your parent constantly compare you to your sibling? Did love feel conditional on performance, obedience, or loyalty? Were you assigned a role in the family dynamic, whether as the achiever, the rebel, or the problem child? If so, these are strong indicators of a manufactured rivalry. Once you see the pattern, the next step is reframing the sibling relationship. This means consciously separating your sibling's behavior from the manipulation that shaped it. Maybe your brother wasn't truly arrogant. He was a golden child under enormous pressure. Maybe your sister wasn't truly hostile. She was a scapegoat pushed into defensiveness. Understanding this can open the door to empathy where resentment once lived. Communication is key. If it feels safe, having honest conversations with siblings about your shared experiences can begin to dissolve years of mistrust. Having honest conversations with siblings about your shared experiences can begin to dissolve years of mistrust. Even if full reconciliation isn't possible, recognizing that you are both victims of the same system can be profoundly healing. Finally, Setting boundaries with the narcissistic parent is essential. This might mean limiting contact, refusing to engage in comparisons, or seeking therapy to strengthen your sense of self. Healing doesn't mean excusing the parent's behavior. It means reclaiming the narrative of your own life. Breaking the cycle isn't easy. It requires awareness, courage, and often outside support. But once the manipulation is exposed, the rivalry loses its power, and the possibility of authentic sibling connection begins to emerge. Sibling rivalry may look like petty childhood squabbles, but when engineered by a narcissistic parent, it becomes something far darker, a strategy of control, division, and lifelong psychological damage. We've seen how these parents assign roles like golden child and scapegoat, how they manipulate through comparison, favoritism, and triangulation, and how the ripple effects can last well into adulthood. But we've also seen that the story doesn't have to end there. Recognizing the pattern is the first step toward breaking it. Once you understand that the rivalry wasn't natural but manufactured, you gain the power to stop playing the game. You can set boundaries, begin healing sibling relationships, and reclaim your identity from the roles imposed on you. If any part of this episode resonated with you, know that you are not alone. Countless people have grown up under similar dynamics, and many are finding ways to heal, connect, and move forward. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Have you experienced sibling rivalry that felt manufactured? How did it affect your family relationships? Share your story in the comments. It might just help someone else who's struggling. And if you found value in this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Thanks for watching.